program.
And I'm Brandy Wiltermuth. I'm a nurse practitioner, and I thought that today we would talk a little bit about how to survive the holidays in terms of how we eat around the holidays and maybe some emotional and behavioral tips that we can use to get through this somewhat emotional and happy time of the year.
And sometimes difficult time of the year.
It's trying for some people, yes.
A lot of people are filled with loss and grief over the holidays.
Yes, so we'll get into all of that, but we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Stay tuned.
Introducing 3 Health Medical Weight Loss Solutions, a unique weight loss clinic backed by real medical research with a treatment focusing on the entire person, mind, body, and spirit. From medical services for obesity and high blood pressure to behavioral services for emotional eating and depression, 3 Health Medical Weight Loss Solutions can help you change your relationship with food, your relationship with yourself, and with life. Find out more, 425-606-0022. Or online at 3.health. That's 3.health.
A lot can happen in 6 seconds. A rodeo ride, a dramatic basketball win, and the world record holder can solve a Rubik's Cube. 6 seconds is how long it takes for an 18-wheeler traveling at a safe speed to come to a complete stop. And in those 6 seconds, that truck will travel the length of 2 football fields. So please, give them room. Never cut in front of a large truck for any reason. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Finding and achieving your ideal weight is difficult. Diet and exercise choices are overwhelming. Sometimes it's just easier to quit before even starting. Bradley Butterfield, Marlene Sexton, and Brandy Wiltermuth, with a total 30 years treating body weight issues, host a show to tackle myths and promote success. Tune in for Weight Loss Conversations, brought to you by 3 Health Medical Weight Loss Solutions, Mondays at 8 a.m. That's Mondays at 8 a.m.
It's time that you are heard, and I don't mean in just a conversation. I mean really heard. Imagine hosting your very own radio program on Alternative Talk 1150. Talk about being heard. Call 425-653-1150 right now to learn how affordable it can be to host your own radio show. Time slots are going fast, so take hold of this chance by dialing 425-653-1150. Alternative Talk, we have an opportunity waiting just for you.
Wherever you go, Alternative Talk 1150 is here for you.
Welcome back. So I thought we would start with going over just a few things that we thought of when we thought about how can we help the people that we see as patients and also just the general public survive the holidays without maybe gaining weight and, you know, being able to have a sense of some control over what they're eating, because this is a long holiday period. It starts around Halloween. You know,
I was gonna say Thanksgiving, but you really think it starts at Halloween?
Oh, absolutely. Halloween is when the candy starts coming out.
The pumpkin spice latte.
Yes, and we're just bombarded by all these messages about food and how cozy and warm and yummy and good and all of these things and how this food is supposed to make us feel. And I think it's everywhere also. It starts becoming more available, like even at the bank, they'll have cookies and things like that. So it's really hard to escape it. I don't think anyone's going to really be able to ignore it. And so we compiled a list of some survival tips. And I think one of the most important ones is to think about these holiday social events, because there's probably more than one, and that's where I think a lot of people struggle. So
well, I don't know. I've only been invited to one.
I've been invited to many.
Oh, okay.
Many.
Right.
I'm so sorry that you're
That's you, Brad.
Mr. Unpopular. But
You can come to mine, but come late, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, it's a part of our culture, the food culture, and it isn't just around the holidays. It's if you go to somebody's house, they ask you if you want food or drink within less than 2 minutes of entering.
So I think that's a good point. It's not just the food culture; it's also the drink culture. Alcohol is a
Right.
big
We'll
part
get
of it.
to that one. That's
Okay.
on the list.
All right.
But I think one of the most helpful things that people can do is not go to these events being extremely hungry. Because if you go there hungry, you're going to have a lot less control over what you eat. And then we can actually get into some specifics about when you're there. But before you even go there, I don't think it's helpful to think, well, I'm going to go to this event, so I just won't eat all day.
So I'm going to be in calorie deficit before I go, so that I can compensate when I'm there. Is that-
Right,
okay.
right. And because people think, well, I'll just probably be able to eat a normal amount when I get there. But if you've not eaten all day, you're definitely going to overdo it and probably not feel so good the next day.
And that's what diets actually teach people, is to restrict calories, is why they're not sustainable. So what we want to talk about is how to make this a lifestyle. So it's not just this holiday season, but it's for the rest of your life, that you've changed your relationship with food and gained some awareness, basically, about why we're eating and what we're eating and how to do it differently.
Right.
So yeah, I've always noticed using my willpower when I'm really hungry is kind of tough.
What's willpower?
Yeah, well, I know.
It's a finite resource.
Yeah.
I think it's an imaginary resource.
It can be. It's just how stubborn somebody can be, basically. And we want, when we're working with our clients, we want them to really change that relationship with food, so that they're not thinking all day, every day about their weight, what they can eat, what they can't eat.
Yeah, deprivation is definitely not going to be a very good technique for long-term success.
Okay, so here's a strategy. I'm all dressed up and I'm excited to go to the party on Saturday evening. What's your strategy?
The one that you got invited to?
The single one, yeah.
Okay. Well,
it's yet to happen, but it's coming.
It actually starts Saturday morning by getting up and eating a normal breakfast that you would, if you were on.
So as a
plan.
therapist, I don't use the word normal, but what would you
Okay,
give
so
me
a
something.
typical breakfast, and for our patients in particular, they know that real food tends to be better as a resource of good nutrition. So I would say if people are eating regularly, they're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they should definitely eat breakfast and make it something that's going to be a little more sustainable, like making sure there's some protein in it. But don't skip it or just have coffee because you are, again, thinking that you're going to eat something later. You're going to eat more later and want to save up those calories for that.
Okay. So Brandy, the protein is going to satiate. It's going to keep you from getting as hungry
It's going
in
to
the morning?
keep your appetite from getting out of control. It's going to keep your blood sugars in check so they're not rolling all over the place up and down. And it's really when our blood sugar is decreasing from eating something high in carbs and high in sugar that draws us toward looking for more carbohydrates for quick energy.
Okay.
So if you can eat a good protein for breakfast and maybe, a little bit of carbohydrate, just as long as the carbohydrate is balanced with protein, it shouldn't be too bad. But then you also wouldn't want to skip lunch just because you're going to eat.
So
more
it
later.
might not be unusual that if I have a weekend event or a party that I'm going to be eating later than I typically might. Is that
Right.
fair?
Which should be, considered that if you're up for a longer period of time and you're more active, that you might actually need to eat a little bit more, and that's okay.
Okay.
Right. But you wouldn't say, well, I'm going to be up till 2 o'clock, so I'm not going to eat breakfast until noon.
Okay.
Like, that doesn't really help either.
One of the things, too, we have to look at with the holiday season is food pushers. So you don't want your reserves to go down, that you're starving and then somebody starts in on saying, you've got to try this.
Right.
I made it just for you. Or I worked all day on this. Because if you're hungry, that's going to really interfere with your resolve.
Right.
Well, and often the social events are maybe in somebody's home. I'm not sitting down at a table. There's often a large buffet or assortment of foods that are put together, and you grab a plate and help yourself. So speak to that a little bit. What's
Well,
your
I think
strategy with that?
with buffets and hors d'oeuvre tables and stuff, to really ask yourself before you go, what do you want to eat? Ask yourself that when you're not hungry.
Make a plan.
And just make a plan that I'm going to have some protein and I'll have some veggies, and I'm going to limit a dessert to something that really does satisfy me, and not, a sugar-free cookie that's going to leave you.
Yeah, like
still
grazing
craving.
the whole table probably isn't a
Yeah.
good idea. And if you can sit down to eat after you've accumulated all the things that you want on your plate, it's proven that people actually eat slower and they eat less if they're sitting down. So I kind of try to make it a rule for my patients at any time, no matter what, that they always eat sitting down.
So you're saying build your plate and then get away from it. Get away
from the table.
Well, and that
table, or-
when I'm working with clients, one of the things I really stress, and you know me for more than a couple minutes, you realize it goes beyond clients, but it's self-care and to treat yourself well, and it really makes a big difference. If you had guests over, you wouldn't say, here, you get to have your dinner standing over the sink. So, we have them sit down and we set the table, and I say treat yourself that way. Sit
right.
down.
So if you're going to have a meal or you're going to eat, you deserve to give yourself space and give the food the attention that it deserves, instead of just filling your stomach with something quick and not really paying attention.
Yeah. And psychologically, if and people will do this, they'll deny themselves food all day long. And it really does speak to, am I worth taking care of? Well,
Right.
if you're not feeding yourself, then that says you're not really taking care of yourself.
Right, right. And I've had a lot of people tell me that they'll go to the party and they will do really well in terms of their choices, and then they go home and they eat something.
Oh, you
because-
mean after the party?
like as
they'll
a
go home.
reward?
Okay.
Yeah, because they did
Okay.
so well.
And again, telling themselves, I was so good because I didn't eat something, as if it defined their character.
Right.
And then they go home and they become so bad because they ate out of the refrigerator standing
Well,
up.
talk to me, Marlene. You mentioned about food pushers. Do you think people go to parties and they are either they feel awkward or embarrassed if a host is asking them to try special foods or is pushing a special dessert, or how
Well-
would you how do you encourage patients to say no thank you in a kind way but a firm way?
That's pretty much it. No, thank you.
Okay.
But one of the things that happens, and this happened to me, I was reading an article on how we, in our culture, will ask people if they want food or drink within less than 2 minutes of entering the house. And so I told my husband, I was reading it to him, and I said, I don't think that's true. And he said, oh, you do that? And I said, no, I don't. Oh, yeah, you do. You offer people stuff before they're even in the door. And as luck would have it, some friends were dropping by, and I'm real big on people just dropping by. I love it when they do that. They don't call, they just drive up the driveway. And he goes, let's see how this works. So our friends came in, and we have a clock by the door with the second hand, and I'm looking at it. I didn't make it 2 minutes. I felt what was coming up for me if I didn't offer them food was they'd think I was rude. And then within about 2 more seconds, I thought, oh, they're going to think they interrupted something, and
Right.
they're going to be awkward. And then I thought, they're never going to come back again. And I had all this catastrophic thinking that these people that I'd known for years and were good friends were never going to speak to me again because I didn't offer them anything.
It's strange, isn't it? I mean, there is definitely the social grace of welcoming somebody into your home and then offering them something to eat or drink, and feeling like that's the polite and acceptable thing to do. I think that's okay, and having a coping mechanism and being aware of that is fine. But when somebody is pushing food on you, that's after you've said no thank you, and they continue to persist to get you to eat something.
It truly is the pusher's problem, because I offered them food because my anxiety was going real high, and I wanted to assuage that. So I offered them food, and they both said no thank you. They were fine. They just had lunch. And then I found myself pushing the food. This several years ago, but it was my anxiety, not their response.
Right.
So here's what I'd like to do. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'd like to talk about a couple of things. I'd like to go to alcohol over the holidays because it's a big
You're
part
the
of this
expert.
conversation. I'm not the expert.
When you say go to alcohol,
Yeah, well, I'd like to talk about alcohol because we know that it plays
Huge part.
a strong role over the holidays and our eating.
It's kind of unavoidable.
And then let's talk. I'd like to talk about so if we do go to a party and we have a bad eating episode, or one time we don't do well.
I call it indiscretion.
Yeah, an indiscretion. I like that. How do we? What's a good recovery? How do we recover?
Yeah.
So
Right.
let's take a break, and
Yeah.
when we come back, let's talk about those two things.
Great.
Finding and achieving your ideal weight is difficult. Diet and exercise choices are overwhelming. Sometimes it's just easier to quit before even starting. Bradley Butterfield, Marlene Sexton, and Brandy Wiltermuth, with a total 30 years treating body weight issues, host a show to tackle myths and promote success. Tune in for Weight Loss Conversations, brought to you by 3 Health Medical Weight Loss Solutions, Mondays at 8 a.m. That's Mondays at 8 a.m.
What if being in recovery from a mental or substance use disorder was something we proudly showed the world? You might be surprised. Millions of people are in recovery, sharing hope, help, and support with family, friends, and community. Join the Voices for Recovery. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral for mental and substance use disorders for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
With decades of experience helping patients change their lives, 3 Health Weight Loss Solutions can help you too. At 3 Health, we provide proven and science-based solutions for realistic, achievable, and sustainable results. We're unique, just like you, and the relationships you have with food and yourself. Find out how we treat obesity, depression, high cholesterol, and more. Just give us a call and change your life today. 425-606-0022. Or visit us online at 3.health. That's THREE.health.
Time is funny. Sometimes it seems fast and other times slow. When it comes to time slots remaining on Alternative Talk 1150, time is running out. In fact, there are just a few primetime slots available. So if you want to host your own radio program, the time to call 425-653-1150 is right now. Nope, no time for excuses. Dial 425-653-1150 to find out how affordable it can be to host a radio show. Alternative Talk, we have an opportunity waiting just for you.
Conversation you won't find on the rest of the dial. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome
So,
back.
Marlene and Brandy, we were talking about holidays and eating at a holiday party, and I'd like to for a few minutes, real quickly, talk about what happens when you blow it.
Then you just start over on January 1st.
Yeah, and well, yeah, exactly. So often a
Just
patient
kidding.
will say to me, "Yeah, I blew it," and
You know what I tell them when they tell me they blew it, because I'm cognitive therapist, which simply means we go by the thought creates the emotion. So if you say that you blew it, you're going to have a negative emotion about that, and then you're going to think that you have to start either Monday morning or January 1st or your birthday. So when they say, "Well, I blew it," I ask them, give them a little visual. If you blow through a stop sign in the morning, do you keep blowing them all day long?
You say, well, I didn't
stop
see
it?
that one, so
Yeah.
I made a mistake. So now I can't stop at any stop signs.
Right, and we know, especially over the holidays, we talked about this Halloween to Christmas time period. It's almost
January.
2 months.
January.
Yeah, right, and so, or New Year's,
New Year's.
and so,
Or you could actually, it's Super Bowl.
and we call it, now it's Super Bowl, but we call it the New Year's resolution, and we kind of landmark it traditionally January 1 or January 2. I'm going to get back on track. And if you're a gym owner, you love it because everybody wants to hit the gym on January 1 or January 2. So we have this resolution that maybe on January 1 we're going to, we hate the term, but we're going to get back on our diet,
Well,
which
and
we
it
don't
really
like.
it speaks to a lot of thinking mistakes that dieters make. That it has to be perfect. I have to eat perfectly, or it's not going to work. That's a big one.
When we do, Marlene and I have done probably thousands of preoperative psychological evaluations for patients that were going into bariatric surgeries. And often I would ask the question in an evaluation, when did you quit a diet? And the most common answer would be when I blew the diet.
When I blew it.
Once.
And what they considered blowing it, too, is that maybe they had a cookie.
They'd make one mistake and then they were done with it.
Right. And I always challenge people with all kinds of different areas of their life, like, how did you get through school? Did you never, ever make any mistakes? Of course you made mistakes and you learned from it and you kept going.
Have you ever wondered, those of us who are parents, if we counseled our children that way? Have you ever thought about that?
Okay, you blew it, so you're out.
You made a mistake,
you
so you should quit the ball team. Yeah,
forget it. You're never going to be able to read.
You dropped the ball on the ball field, so I think you should just quit the team.
Well, most people too are much harder on themselves than they are on anybody else.
Sure, we are.
Right.
Yeah, we practice a real lack of grace for ourselves.
Right.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So we have to teach people some strategies around that. And one of them that I think works pretty well is, if you set yourself up, like we talked about, eating pretty regularly throughout the day, and then you're not in a calorie deficit, and you're not in hypoglycemic state, and then you're not adding alcohol to the system when you're dehydrated, you're going to be able to tolerate a cookie or a bite of dessert without feeling the ramifications. You won't have such a physiological drive of eating more of it because you're satiated and you've eaten well and your protein levels are up and your calories are not too low, and you can take a bite and taste it and savor it and go, that was good. I don't need to keep eating it.
So Brandy, as I've worked with you over these past years, and I'm a self-proclaimed sugar addict. You've heard me say this many times with our patients. I really struggle with sugar addiction, and you talk about hypoglycemic state, so that I don't self-denigrate all the time about it just being a question of my willpower. Give me a little bit more about that around sugar, because I know both with alcohol and with cookies, cakes, candies, and ice cream, how sugar affects me. Give me some more about that.
So when people have eaten a decent amount of sugar or carbohydrate, they get a lot of energy into their blood in the form of glucose, and that generally makes people feel like they have a lot of energy and that they are able to do a lot and think pretty well and be fairly active and feel good doing that. And then insulin has to remove a lot of that sugar and use it for energy in the tissues, and then also store whatever it can't use right away. And that's actually when blood sugar decreases, and it happens pretty rapidly for some people.
Is that so? For me, that's what I call my crash.
That's when you get hangry.
Okay.
Yeah, and you start pacing the clinic and looking for food.
Oh, you see me do that?
Only a few times.
Okay.
You come into our office and ask if we have any.
Yeah, and you all deny me, which is good.
Not enablers.
Okay.
So, and it is a physiological state that feels pretty bad for most people. And some people don't get it quite as obviously. They'll just have a headache, or they'll just start to feel a little bit hungry or wonder why they're thinking about eating food or finding food. But most people who have had a good dose of sugar are then going to crash much harder. And that's when people are really susceptible to making poor decisions around food, because they're smart, right? They're smart people, and they know that a big dose of sugar is going to bring them right back up to that higher blood sugar level, and they'll feel better right away. We're pretty smart animals when it comes to that.
So we talk about the holidays in the banquet table. There were times in my life when I would walk in and I would see the the piles of desserts on one end of the banquet table, and I actually get probably more excited about that than anything else that was happening in the room.
The people or
yeah,
anything
sure.
else.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was,
And we do, working with clients, I'll look at that relationship with food is what's really going on when you're excited about a food. I mean, I know that foods can look good and they're well prepared and some are better than others. But when somebody's looking for, or it says, I need to have that. I'm angry right now, or I'm stressed, or I'm nervous. Maybe they have a little social anxiety or something, and they already know which foods are going to
well,
Sugar is
Marlene,
soothing.
I have to tell you, to break my sugar habit over the years, there have even been times where I've suffered from loss and grief over not having it. That may
It's
sound
real
crazy, but
withdrawals.
yeah, it really
Yeah.
is. And
No,
once you can get through that, of
Mhm.
course, it lessens.
And
but-
sometimes it really has to be a proactive exercise. I often have people write letters to the food that is their trouble food. And I had a woman write, she thought it was silly and didn't really want to do it, but wrote a letter to ice cream because it had been there for her. She came from a very abusive background, and she learned to soothe with ice cream, and it was always there. And then one day she said, I'm not going to have it anymore, and stopped eating ice cream, but then didn't know what else to do.
Didn't have a coping mechanism place.
She didn't have a coping mechanism for it. So we worked on ways that she can deal with sadness and grief and her abuse issues.
And this is, I think, where it gets hard because some people really can have a relationship with sugar where they can enjoy it and control it, and it doesn't
Well,
cause
I think that's the
an
bottom
issue.
line. Is it a problem, or is it same with alcohol? Some people, some doctors recommend a glass of wine. But
Right.
that doesn't work if you're alcoholic.
Right.
And if somebody is using food to cope, that's not the same as feeling good about eating something, feeling nourished, and not beating yourself up afterwards
Right.
for it.
Right. So I guess part of it is people have to kind of figure out where they're at with that. If
Mhm.
they're a true sugar addict, that's like saying to somebody, you can only have a little bit of heroin. No, you
Mhm.
can't. You can't
Well,
have
we
it.
see this. I use the example if we had a loved one that was in our home and they just went through a 30-day treatment program for alcohol, and they came back into the home, we would get rid of all the bottles in the house. We wouldn't say, "Oh, the bottles are just in the cupboard there. Stay away from them." We would
Unless
practice.
we wanted to sabotage
Well,
them.
that's right. Unless we wanted to sabotage
That's
them.
a different show.
we would
We
get
can do
rid
that
of
later.
we would get rid of the alcohol, and there are those of us that just can't have the sugar in the house. It
Mhm.
doesn't work for us. In fact, there's a lot of us that doesn't work
Mhm.
for.
Yeah.
Yeah, studies are starting to really come out. Brandy, you know more about this than I do, but studies about it's really kind of a poison, especially mixed with starchy carbohydrates.
Right. And
guess
I mean, it's really about how the body metabolizes those things. And sugar, especially the fructose part, which is also the sugar and alcohol, are metabolized the same whether the source is alcohol or ice cream.
But traditionally, we get back to the holidays between Halloween and New Year's over this period. This is the way most of us were raised.
Right,
This is,
and
this is the sugar time.
And
for
it's
us.
almost, unbelievable that we would call it poison when it's, grandma's recipe
Mhm.
for this traditional, Scandinavian dish
or
that we have to have.
it's fruitcake time, or
Whatever it
Sure,
is,
yeah,
and
exactly.
to try to think of food in different terms is really, really difficult.
And then as we get older and become responsible adults, the other area that we were going to talk about this morning that sugar also plays a role in is alcohol use.
Yeah. And so I think alcohol, again, like Marlene said, if you don't have a problem with it, then it's generally not a problem. When it comes to trying to lose weight, people always say, do I have to quit drinking to do weight loss? And I say, well, are you going to quit drinking forever? Because if your plan is to go back to it after you've lost weight, then you need to be able to lose weight while you're drinking. Unless, of course, there's a problem. Then that's a different topic. But people are always pretty shocked about that. And then I have to explain, from a macronutrient calorie level, alcohol isn't, quote unquote, bad.
It's not the enemy that diets tell you it is.
Right, right. But from the perspective of what happens when too much alcohol is consumed and inhibitions get lowered, that's really, I think, the problem with it.
Well, sure. I mean, a lot of us will have a glass of wine or a cocktail because we want to relax. It relaxes
And
us.
it's social.
Sure it is.
Yeah.
And if it's not a problem, it's not a problem.
Right.
But if it's leading to you eating foods that you didn't intend to partake in, or, obviously, I used to be a bartender. It goes a lot, there can be a lot more problems than what you're eating. But again, if it's not a problem.
Well, Marlene, isn't that why you got into counseling?
That
You
is.
were such a great bartender?
I was a good bartender. First, I got them to where they needed counseling. And
Then you counseled
Then
them.
I counseled
That's
them.
smart.
Always a plan.
I like it.
So, yeah, the holidays, actually, I was just thinking about the holidays. Let's not forget Valentine's Day, where you're only supposed to.
I
give
can make a
candy.
calendar
Oh, it's
for you.
It's something every month.
Because
Then
there's also,
Easter.
it's not an official holiday, but it's Girl Scout cookies.
Oh, yeah, that starts in February.
Well, and then the other period is often for families is around the end of the school years for all of the graduations, and so that's not uncommon.
And then weddings.
Yeah,
And then the 4th of July.
right.
And I could go on and on.
Yeah, it's in our culture. It's every month. There isn't somebody's having a birthday. I know we've had many clients who work in office buildings that it's somebody's birthday. They just do weekly now because it's always somebody's birthday.
And whether you like it or not,
Right.
there's a piece of cake on your desk.
So I want to be careful here, though, because I believe both culturally and as families and friends, we do practice relationship and community around the table. So we're not telling people that you don't practice relationship and community around the table. I think what we're saying, though, is you have to learn how to do it differently.
Right. It almost every culture food plays a big part in their families and cultures and friends and how to make friends and influence people. We have to be more aware of, is this working for me, is really the bottom line. How is this working? Am I gaining weight? Am I beating myself up? Am I getting unhealthy? Am I getting some of the comorbidities? If those are the cases, then it's not working.
So, Marlene, what we're saying is you don't check out of life, you don't
No.
isolate from family and community, but we're trying to teach people at 3 Health how to be healthy and how to do it differently.
Right. We really do address the mind, body, and spirit, and how to go. I've had clients that refuse to go to parties because they don't know what to do with all the abundance, and to learn what they can do and still feel good. It's not feeling deprived. It's not feeling left out. There are strategies in there, and just kind of changing our relationship with food. We often go to somebody's house and take food, or ask, what we can bring. There are non-food items we can take to parties.
I like to take flowers.
Flowers are nice, and
Candles.
Candles are good, or even a book for the children or something. It's not about isolating yourself or dissociating from people. It's just changing that relationship, that it's not all foods. We talk about food in our language. We say things like, did you take that test the other day? Yeah, it was a piece of cake.
Yeah.
He's a real smart cookie.
She's so sweet.
She's so sweet, and she thinks she's a hot tamale. But it's everywhere, and we have to be more conscious and more proactive in our own self-care. We have to build coping skills so that somebody can tell us no thank you, and we don't have anxiety going through the roof thinking they'll never speak to us again. We have to learn assertiveness. I deal a lot with clients that will say, I don't, when my sister pushes food, I don't know what to say.
Well, it's interesting you would say that. I don't know what to say because often in my sessions with my clients or patients, we write scripts and we practice the scripts. As silly as that may sound,
but it may be the first time they've thought about it.
We'll even write things down and we'll rehearse how to handle Uncle Ernie at the family dinner that's coming up, and how to script how to say no. And as silly as that may sound here on this program, I did that last week with a patient, and she was quite relieved that she left the office or the clinic with a script that was in place, and she felt like she was prepared to handle
She had some
the
tools.
sabotage.
One of the things
Yeah.
I learned a long time ago is that people are generally looking for a compliment about the food.
Sure.
Mhm.
They don't really necessarily need to see you eat it
Well,
and
that's
then
interesting
respond.
too, because how often are you really watching what's on the fork going into somebody's mouth?
Not that
Not
often.
real often, or how much is maybe left on the plate. That's fairly rare.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But people want the attention and the recognition of having created something for others, right?
And so
they want to be
simply to
appreciated.
say, wow, that looks delicious.
Yeah.
It's really well presented, and then
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there really are a lot of strategies, but if you've never practiced them or you've never even heard of it, if you come from a family that just says, sure, yeah, okay, I'll start my diet on Monday, you're not going to have the words for it.
So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I would like to talk about the holidays and traditions. A lot of the things we've been talking about here are traditions around food and drink, but maybe go a little bit deeper and talk about the holidays and traditions and our emotions and maybe grief that we feel, some loss that we feel. A lot of us have been
This is
involved
supposed to be
in.
a happy occasion.
It is supposed to, and maybe just that statement "supposed to be"
Yep.
is one of our challenges.
Exactly.
So we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about emotions around the holiday.
Introducing 3 Health Medical Weight Loss Solutions, a unique weight loss clinic backed by real medical research with a treatment focusing on the entire person, mind, body, and spirit. From medical services for obesity and high blood pressure to behavioral services for emotional eating and depression, 3 Health Medical Weight Loss Solutions can help you change your relationship with food, your relationship with yourself, and with life. Find out more, 425-606-0022. Or online at 3.health. That's 3.health.
Hey parents, your children are growing up fast. Maybe you've changed jobs or had a change in your family life. We at the Division of Child Support know that life changes. Your child support could change too. We want to help you give your kids what they need. Let's talk. Please call us at 1-800-442-KIDS or 1-800-442-5437.
Alternative Talk 1150. We're on your radio at 1150 a.m. We're on your HD radio at 98.9 Channel 3.
So many ways to listen.
We're on the web at 1150kknw.com, streaming live audio and video as well as MP3 archives of many of our shows.
So many ways to listen.
And now, we're on your smartphone or tablet. Download our free app in the Apple App Store or Google Play and take Alternative Talk 1150 anywhere you go.
So many ways to listen.
Finding and achieving your ideal weight is difficult. Diet and exercise choices are overwhelming. Sometimes it's just easier to quit before even starting. Bradley Butterfield, Marlene Sexton, and Brandy Wiltermuth, with a total 30 years treating body weight issues, host a show to tackle myths and promote success. Tune in for Weight Loss Conversations, brought to you by 3 Health Medical Weight Loss Solutions, Mondays at 8 a.m. That's Mondays at 8 a.m.
An alternative to everything else on your radio dial. Alternative Talk 1150.
And we're back.
So we've been talking about surviving the holidays and some tips and tricks about getting through the holidays without gaining weight. We'd like to go a little bit deeper for our final segment and maybe talk about some emotions that we are dealing with around the holidays. Often the holidays can be highly stressful. In fact, I had a patient last week that told me for a number of years she and her family just simply leave town for the holidays. They have a condominium in Hawaii, and so that
I like that idea.
well, they do, and
I
so
wanna
that
do that.
so that they don't have to deal with family stress. They take off every year, and it's like clockwork. And dealing with families over the holidays, in her instance, has always been so stressful that they just choose to leave town.
One of the things, and I think Brandy said this before the break, is it's supposed to be happy. It's supposed to be lovely. And we get that in our mind, and maybe other people aren't cooperating with us so much on that. And it isn't happy. It's stressful. The idea of Hawaii sounds lovely, except for then you just come back to the same dynamics.
Right.
It's
Have you ever noticed, Marlene, around Thanksgiving, the week before Thanksgiving, and then around Christmas holiday, that we get calls from patients that are truly in crisis.
Yeah.
That they're calling us because of family and maybe partner or spouse or other stresses that of things that are upcoming that they're just checking out. They
Well,
can't
the
handle.
world doesn't know it's the holidays, so stuff just keeps happening regardless.
Right.
And then
Yeah, put several people in the room that are stressed and maybe add some alcohol into the mix, and then how it was supposed to be, or maybe how it used to be. There could be some grief, as you were saying earlier. That grief doesn't go away because it's a holiday. In fact, a lot of times it's really highlighted how much you miss somebody.
Right. Well, I was sharing with you driving over here, and you know my personal story. In 2001 on Thanksgiving Day, I actually lost my wife after a long battle with cancer. And so that was one hell of a holiday, that Thanksgiving, and then at Christmas, and realized that my daughter and I and then our family had to recreate our holiday in a much different way. My wife, Leslie, was she was the how do I say, Christmas was her very, very favorite holiday, and she planned most of the year for that holiday. And so
she did it up.
Yeah, and so having her gone, I realized that we had to do that holiday different, and it was different. It was very difficult for a few years, but now we do the holiday in a different tradition, and so that word "supposed to" that you use, Brandy, or should. Gotten that out of our vocabulary, and actually, even though the holiday tradition is different, it's wonderful. We
Yeah,
have
it doesn't
wonderful
have to be
holidays.
different. Doesn't mean bad. Doesn't have
Right.
to mean bad.
And we also, I think, there's something about Christmas in our childhood that many of us look back with fondness. It may not be truthfulness, but we have magical memories or fondness. And if we're struggling at all, if we are struggling with our health, or family relationships, the holidays can be really, really difficult.
They are, and it's an extended period of time again.
It is.
You know.
And there are stressors outside the holiday. I mean, they're connected with the holiday, but people buying gifts and, financial stressors and time stressors. You have to go and get all these things. And it often is delegated to one or two people. You said Leslie was the one that planned all year. Whether you are enjoying it or not, that can be a lot of stress for that one person as well. And a lot of times people don't ask for help. They don't, they shouldn't have to ask for help. They should be happy to do it. And you throw all that into one room.
Yeah, I like your use of the word, or don't like the use of your word should. I wrote on a poster and stuck it on my wall one time. I said, I'm not going to should on myself anymore, because I think
it's a big tenet in any
SHO,
12-step programs.
ULD. We got to quit shoulding on ourselves over the holidays, because that's a tough one.
Yeah.
We do that a lot. So,
and when you go with cognitive theory and the thought creating the emotion, when we say should, it's going to bring up what happens in real quickly and easily. The subconscious comes in and gives you the appropriate feeling for the thought. And should comes with two feelings. One might be dread, and the other might be guilt.
sure.
And those are difficult emotions to sit with, and we might say it.
You know what?
15
I think I
times.
need a holiday cocktail now.
Yeah, or that's right. I think I need a drink, and then of course the really, really big S word in the whole thing, Marlene and Brandy, is shame.
Yeah.
So not only is there the should word, but the shame word, and
Guilt is often about something you did, but
Mhm.
shame is kind of how you see yourself.
Right. It's about your sense of
Yeah,
self-worth.
It's who you are.
Yeah.
And if you're carrying the shame, it just, so making, what's the solution is to really sit down, be proactive, be conscious, take some time to say, how do I want this to go? And really have a plan for it. And as you're looking at that, is it going to be conducive to, are people coming over? So say an aunt is coming over and she's real critical. You're going to want to limit time with that aunt. And that can be as simple as just being across the room most of the day.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to cut off from her. You don't have to disinvite her. You can have topics that you want to talk about with the aunt that are safe, and then make yourself scarce. Talk with other people.
So you're saying you think you can create a strategy to almost stealth yourself from that problematic aunt?
Yep.
Okay.
You really can. And if you give it thought, I mean, I've asked people, one of the things that I want patients to look at when we talk about the holidays is, why are you doing what you're doing? Does it bring you joy? And if they're saying, no, it's stressful, I can't stand being around these people, it's time to make a new plan.
Sure. I agree with you.
Because they're not going to change,
But don't you think sometimes people don't even know that that's why they're anxious or feeling the dread?
Mm-hmm.
They don't even pinpoint, like, oh, it's just there's too much going on.
Or
I'm too busy.
Brandy, maybe if they do know, they don't think it's okay, as Marlene might be saying, to do something different.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times just hearing, them themselves say it out loud, it isn't, that I'm coming in with $1 million answer. They can finish the sentence with, why am I inviting her all the time?
Right.
But we don't talk about it because it's not okay.
Right.
And
we're all supposed to be happy and
everybody's supposed to be happy, so I'm not going to bring it up that these people drive me crazy.
Yeah.
And
the other
then
thing
you
is,
don't
like,
know.
it's one day.
Yeah.
It's not, it shouldn't be from Halloween until January 2nd. We should be like, there's Thanksgiving Day. There's Christmas Day.
But
even
New Year's
Christmas morning.
but as per our conversation here today, I think what we do is we medicate with food and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
We know that we do that.
Well, the Christmas decorations, the holiday decorations start coming out before Halloween now.
Yeah.
And so it's constantly, we're getting these messages all day long. All the time, for months. And you really have to be conscious and proactive to say, yeah, I'll make my own decisions about that later.
Right.
I'm not going to plan for Christmas around Labor Day.
Exactly. Thank you.
And just, teaching when we look at the body, mind, and spirit, and have people, devise their own plans, what is best. It's all boils down, for me, everything boils down to self-care. Is that going to be in your own best interest? We all do stuff we don't want to do because it is in our best interest. Coming to work early in the morning isn't top on my list of things to do, but in the long run, it is in my best interest to do that.
Sure.
So it's being conscious of, is the payoff worth it? It's cost and benefit analysis.
So what are some traditions you guys are going to take part in, either with your family or that you do during the holidays?
Well, we do on Christmas Eve a pozole. It's a Mexican stew, hominy stew, and I live on Lummi Island, and we invite all the neighbors, and it's really fun. It's an open house. It lasts hours, but it's a really good time to connect with people where we're not rushing to catch a ferry.
And everybody knows that's what you're going to serve.
Yeah, that's all we serve is pozole, and then they just drop in and have a bowl and say hi to people they haven't seen in a while.
Cool.
And so, as you both know, we have a second home up near Leavenworth in the mountains, and so we've been a family of skiers, and so we will go up and spend time in the snow, which I love in this dark, wet, cold time of year to be outside. So we will go up and spend as much time on both the ski slope and then cross-country skiing around Leavenworth as we can, which I will be up there with my brother and sister-in-laws and my nieces and nephews and also my children. So being outdoors, and we will get as much outdoor activity on the ski slopes as possible, and then we gather for meals. So we enjoy that over the holidays.
What do you do in
So
the
we're gonna
old country?
we are gonna eat oyster stew on Christmas Eve, and then we just make a whole bunch of like appetizer things. So we all cook and eat. And
Now you have family coming from quite some distance, don't you?
I have everybody's descending on us. Yes.
Okay.
So
From where are they coming from?
New Mexico, Sweden, New York.
Oh my goodness. So you're going to have a house full.
I am.
Okay.
So have a plan.
I do.
And delegate.
I have to go to work.
Yeah, you do. So you're going to be working in the midst of having house guests.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be a nice relief.
That's great.
No, it'll be great.
Okay.
So I'm excited. So next week, let's talk about that. I think next week we will get into a little bit more of our personal stories so people get to know us a little bit better. And then there was a topic you wanted to cover next week, or was it you?
On body image?
Body image,
yeah. It's I've noticed since we started 3 Health that we're getting more and more women particularly that are worried about losing weight, and they think they have a lot more to lose than they do.
Yeah.
And what we look for really is health. So it's, talking about body image and body dysmorphia a little bit.
Okay, that sounds like a good topic. All right. Well, I think that's it for us for this week. And tune in next week. If you want to send us an email, we're at contactus@3.health. That's the word 3 spelled out. And our phone number is 425-606-0022. And you can leave us a message if we don't answer.
If you have any topics you'd like us to discuss, let us know.
Thanks for listening to Weight Loss Conversations, brought to you by 3 Health Medical Weight Loss Solutions. We love hearing from our audience, so be sure to drop us a note. We so appreciate when you tell family and friends about our program. Also, don't forget that our past programs are found at 1150kknw.com. That's 1150kknw.com. Have a wonderful week and tune in next Monday at 8 a.m. That's 8 a.m. Monday. Be sure to visit our website at 3.health. That's THREE.health.
The content and opinions expressed during this program were those of the hosts, guests, and callers. They are not intended in any way to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease.
The views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of KKNW, its management, or other advertisers. Contests are the responsibility of the host of this program and not KKNW. This is Alternative Talk 1150 AM, KKNW Seattle, and KNUC 98.9 HD3 Seattle.
I'm Dr. Anthony Lazowitz, and this is Climate Connections. When the temperature rises, you get sweaty and sticky. But hot weather can harm more than your comfort. During a heat wave, even healthy young adults can lose their ability to think at their best. Jose Guillermo Cedeno-Laurent of the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health studied 44 Boston area college students. Some of the students lived in air-conditioned dorms, and some did not. Each morning, he tested the students' cognitive speed and working memory, and he found that as it got hotter, the students without AC fared worse on the tests.
The reaction times of the students without air conditioning were about 13% longer. The number of correct answers per minute was also lower.
By reducing cognitive performance, heat can harm productivity, and not just in schools, but among workers too. Controlling inside temperatures can help.
Between 72 to 73 degrees Fahrenheit, there is an optimum for cognitive performance.
But running the AC contributes to climate change, which ultimately means more heat waves. So Cedeno-Laurent says we need to develop more sustainable ways to keep buildings cool. Climate Connections is produced by the Yale Center for Environmental Communication. Learn more at yaleclimateconnections.org.
And a good morning to you. This is Nate here, and as we wrap up this debut show for Weight Loss Conversations and move into the 9 o'clock hour, it's time for an update on the traffic. Right now, the biggest slowdowns on the freeways are occurring in a northbound direction, with I-5 seeing stop-and-go conditions heading into Seattle from Boeing Field, and 405 will encounter some intermittent congestion between Renton and Bellevue. In the southbound direction, things will get a bit lighter with 405 running a bit slow between Woodinville and Bothell. And then on I-5, it'll start to get heavy heading into Seattle from Northgate Way. That's it for this traffic update. Coming up next is an encore edition of Dr. Andy's Wellness Corner, where he interviews Dr. De Palma after this news break.
Russian interference ongoing. Stocks in correction. I'm Michael Toscano. A report being released today by the Senate Intelligence Committee says, quote, active and ongoing Russian interference operations still exist on social media platforms. And it says the Russian operation discovered after the 2016 presidential election was much broader than originally thought. Former FBI Director James Comey testifies before House Republicans today for the second time in this lame duck session. More from Manu Raju.
Republicans entering this today believe that James Comey has not been fully truthful with the committee. They believe that he didn't disclose properly his knowledge about the role that the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee had in funding that opposition research, the research that eventually led to part of the Steele dossier, and they want to press him further on that.
Falling healthcare stocks are helping lead indexes lower on Wall Street after a federal judge guaranteed a long court battle and upset for insurance companies by declaring Obamacare unconstitutional. The Dow is leading losses now, and Steve Kastenbaum reports the market hit correction status.
The 30 blue chip stocks fell 300 points within the first 15 minutes of trading. That's a fall of more than 1%. The Dow is now down 11% from its 52-week high. The stock market is well into correction territory. The same concerns that have been driving the downward trend are still around today. Fear of a slowing global economy and tension